All right, let's kick off. Would you mind? There we go. Thank you. Hi, I'm KH. At least that's what most people call me. My name is Karl Henrik, and they apparently have a hard time, saying that in most countries I've been in, so it's been abbreviated to KH. I am going to talk to. I used to talk a lot about application modernization. I've done application modernization workshops in 3 different continents around the world and in 30 countries. I pushed code in more than that. So I used to go around and I used to talk about strangulation patterns and all these cool things, like how we actually modernize stuff. And every time, especially when I went to Poland, I know you guys are sneaky, some people would say, yeah, that's all fine, but how do we actually get to do it? Because we know how to do it. We're smart, we're Polish. But how do we actually get to do it? So this is more the talk about how do we get to do application modernization? How do we break the political barriers? How do we ride the architectural elevator from the developers up to the CEO? And how do we get everybody to join us down in the basements of getting rid of horrible applications? Sounds fun? All right, let's go. Everybody lies. I'd like to get that out of the way first and foremost. Every single person, every single company, every single place I've ever been to, I have been lied to. People lie by omission. People lie about what they have. People lie about the fact that they've written enough unit tests. How many people have said they've written unit tests? How many people were supposed to write unit tests? But we didn't, right? Most people don't lie because they mean to. Most people lie through a lot of other reasons. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. But if you take nothing away from this talk except for this, then you will still be better off. So what I would like to share with you now is, as I said, I have been all over the world. I've seen code bases from some of the largest corporations around the globe. Everybody's code stinks. Very, very few companies have a decent amount of tests and unit tests and security. Very few company does not have a lot of tech legacy that they're trying to get rid of. So if you are doing a reasonable amount of refactoring, if you're doing a reasonable amount of unit testing and testing in general, and if you have your support from your management structure to actually write good code, you are doing better than 90% of the rest of the developers in the world. And I've gone around to enough places and seen enough code bases to prove that. I also checked it with a lot of speakers that are here and they agree with me. And if you know how hard it is to get a speaker to agree with you, then... But then there's this thing about lying about omission. I hate these things. Does anybody know what this is? This is an automatic toilet flusher. I used to work with electronics 25 years ago. I know how that thing works. It's a touchless button, that's what it is. Lying about being automatic. So what happens is if I go and use that, I'll sit down on the toilet. It's going to work perfectly fine. As I get up, more light will go into this sensor and it will flush the toilet perfectly fine. If my 7-year-old daughter will go there, she will do the 7-year-old toilet dance, which they for some reason do, and it will become more of a continuous flusher rather than an automatic flusher, which will invoke the rather automatic dad response of, what's going on in there? But we developers also do this. We simplify things. Because to tell somebody that, oh, this is a touchless sensor that works with a light-emitting diode, that's a lot of work for somebody who doesn't even understand how electronics works, right? Same thing for us. When we need to explain something to a project manager we rather wouldn't talk to, or to a CEO, or to a CTO, or this sort of thing, we simplify. We remove some of the truth to make it easier to understand. And this is needed, because if we would take all the time it takes to explain how this works to all these people, we would never have time enough to work. So let's talk about Germany. So a couple of years ago, I was doing a workshop in Germany. I was sitting with two developers, highly skilled ones, in one of those fancy conference rooms, and they were telling me how horrible everything was. They had applications that had been replaced by applications that had been replaced, but all of these applications were still there and very integrated into their software system. Anybody recognize that? Fairly common pattern, I've noticed. They had tools, they had trying to do things, they have integrations that failed, they had, a sort of half-working DevOps flow, a lot of stuff that was just complicated beyond measures. I was very surprised, because the day before, I had been sitting with their upper management, and they have been telling me how great everything was. Oh yeah, we have this state-of-the-art DevOps flow, we do great integrations. And our developers, they always follow every guideline that there is. Okay? Remember now, everybody lies. Why are they lying to me? Are they lying to me because they want to fool me? Unlikely. I was paid by Microsoft to be there and help them. So they had absolutely no point. So rather than that, no. Everybody simplifies. So when I started to look into what had happened here, I did this is apparently very, very bad to do in Germany, but I took the developers who'd had one opinion to talk to the managers who have a different opinion. Weird thing. And we came up to the fact that, they were both right. They had something called legacy, which management thought you didn't have to think about because that was going away. The only problem was that has been going away for the past 10 years. And it was still there. So it's sort of important to figure out who of these people were actually telling the truth. And where we begin to sort of figure out the truth. Okay, so we have this thing that was called legacy. What's legacy software? Anyone? Put it this way then. If I would go to your company, do you have a definition of what legacy software is and isn't? I think you do. The only problem is the distributed model, because you have one belief, and your colleague has one belief, and your colleague has one belief, and that's a really poor way of managing legacy application and application lifecycle management, right? So let's try and create one together. Legacy is handed down from the past as an ancestor or predecessor. Fairly straightforward. I looked it up at Webster, no problem. Software, the programs used to direct the operations of a computer, still fair enough. I like that. Let's go for Webster. Legacy software. All right, so let's then turn to the authoritative people. Dylan Beattie, who's been to this conference many times, said, legacy code is code that's too scary to update and too profitable to delete. I like that definition. The problem is that most companies have this sort of definition when you push them on it. Software we built long ago, it's often hard to change, it quite often breaks, we don't really have any logging, and it makes us a lot of money, usually, like we need it. So this day in Germany, I sat down with them and we came up with a definition. And this definition has been with me for every workshop for application modernization I've done since. You're welcome to steal it or change it to whatever needs you have. This is what we came up with. Legacy software has a set date when we will turn it off. If you cannot say to me, on October the 15th of 2025, or if it's 2028 for all that matters, it's not legacy software. And there is a path away from the legacy software. If you cannot tell me exactly what steps I need to take to stop using this piece of software, this endpoint, this software module, this NuGet package or YAR library or whatever we're talking about, it's not legacy software. Fairly simple, right? So this is something that I've added as a trick. It's the legacy definition. I've heard that Polish people like to go around the rules. True? Do you like to circumvent the rules? Yes? No? Yes. Who doesn't? Germans. So this trick is really good to getting around the rules because it forces us suddenly to have budget, to have staff, to have SLAs for something that people before had just called legacy and sort of trying to avoid. Suddenly somebody needs to take responsibility for it. So, now we're avoiding all this software that fell between the cracks, because you can't fall between the cracks, because we know when we're going to turn it off or it will be around. So it's kind of nice. I really like this trick. So legacy software is a lot like Elvis in that sense. Now that we have a definition, if somebody's been telling you that software product X is going away tomorrow for the last 10 years, and they would walk in here today and say software product X is going away tomorrow, would you believe them? No. Same thing, if the king of rock and roll would walk out here on stage with me, do a few dance moves, play a guitar riff and walk off, would you believe that was Elvis? Not really, right? Not even with a DNA test would you believe that, because the guy's been dead since the 70s. Right? So we need to take similar precautions now. If we had this culture of, not that Elvis was dead, most companies have that, but if we have this culture of saying that this legacy application is going away for a long time, now we need to be more clear about it. We need to sort of invent a process. And from this, I took something which I would like to call, what would Microsoft do? And I don't mean, call it Surface Copilot and slap a license fee on top of it. Microsoft is really good at quite a lot of things. I used to work there for 7 years, so, I gotta like something. Specifically, they're really good at application lifecycle management. They're good at telling you what's going away. And we took a lot of that into this German company. So this was done in iterations. But the first thing we did is we started a decommissioning newsletter. Every month, we would send an automatic email saying, these endpoints will be decommissioned on this date. Please start using these endpoints. These modules will be decommissioned. Please start using these modules. And if we knew, we would also attach what software products were being affected. Germans pride themselves of having, a lot of organization or everything. Surprising how few of these companies that actually know what software they have. So it's quite seldom we had that information. But it worked pretty well. Then we realized that one email every month isn't really enough. So we built a website with an updated lifecycle plan where you could go, you could also click a button and add something that was going away, like a fun little small project, perfect to give to a junior kind of thing. We also added here more detailed code examples, how you could rewrite stuff, how you could get things away. That's very, very helpful. And the last thing we did, we told every single manager that whenever you have an all hands, you need to mention this. You need to mention that now we are actually turning it off. And then we explained to the managers over and over and over and over again that yes, for real, yes, we will actually turn it off. What will happen if we turn it off when it's actually running? It will stop working. Yes, that's what's happening. And then they said, who took this decision? You did. You made the legacy definition. And it worked pretty well. All right. So now we have a legacy definition. Let's add this, let's just add the stuff we want to get rid of to the list and we'll be done, right? Problem is we also need to get everybody to agree. So I started noticing that after the first burst of things that we all knew we wanted to get rid of, it was kind of hard to add this last few things, or to add more things to the list, because we couldn't agree that it was legacy. No, we still need that. No, we don't. Yes, we do. And you know, these sort of things. And the developers were going, it's just a few hundred lines of code. And then the manager were, yeah, but can you really do it? You're slow as it is. What? So I learned that this company had tried to modernize before, you know, with the existing resources. They had trusted some. I don't like to use the word consultants because I feel that consultants help people. Confusers? Could that be a new role? Consulting confusers? Confusing consultants? I don't know. So they've tried to help them and have recommended a low-code platform to do a huge overhaul of a few very complex systems. It have gone really badly, but you know, they hadn't told them till the contract was renewed and all these sort of things. So they had a distrust towards, not towards consultants, but towards new software. So we were sort of sitting here in this middle of this political storm of lies, bad software, trust, people who didn't really feel comfortable to change. So we have to go and look at that. So the first thing I want to look at, whenever somebody is afraid to change software, is there tests? There were no tests. How many are surprised? Not many, right? Yeah. So I went to the developers and started asking, like, why are there no tests? Why are there thousands of lines of code in this file? Oh, my boss won't let me. Anyone use that excuse? Be honest. Thank you. I like that when be honest and there's a couple of more hands. All right, yeah, I have. I've heard this as well. I've heard this at almost every organization I've helped across the globe. I've heard this. It's very seldomly true. I mean, it is true to you. It's not true to your boss, usually. There are exceptions, I'll give you that. But they think that you are asking to do like some fun engineering activity that you very much would like to do. Basically, they're saying, hey, can I improve my CV so I can leave this hellhole? Rather than, can I make my life nicer? So it's sort of like a question of explaining more what I would like to do. Because let's put it this way. If we had a restaurant together, and because usually it goes something like this. No, our boss has told us only to focus on value-creating activities because the consultants told us so, right? Value-creating activities. So let's say we have a restaurant instead. What's the value-creating activity in a restaurant? True. If you're a chef, what is the value-creating activity if you're a chef? It's cooking, right? Cool. So let's say he only focuses on cooking. He's only cooking dishes. For 2 weeks, we'll let him just cook dishes. Then we come into his kitchen after 2 weeks, and we see him wading around in an ocean of discarded food and rotting, and you know, just trying to sort of find a cutting board. Is he going to be fast? No. Same thing that we can use this sort of argument when we want to refactor, because it's part of our job. It's what we do to be able to work. And to be honest, like unless we can sell it as sauerkraut, this is not going to be any value on that floor. And I mean German sauerkraut. So you will not get fired for doing your job. 2011, I think, 2012, I went to this conference for the first time. I met a huge amount of really, really interesting people here. And some of these people told me the same thing. Because I also said this up until 2011. And I went to this conference, this specific conference, and met these people. And they told me that, no, you know what, you can do this. Nobody ever got fired for doing their job. And they were so sure of themselves, because they have way better CVs than me, so they could never, you know, they would never be out of a job. But it sort of stuck with me. And I'll be honest, this is not a slide you'd see in any other conference, but I probably owe a lot of my career to that day at DevConf in 2012. And I hope I'm going to inspire some of you guys to get the same thing, because it was really, really helpful to me. All right. Honest facts and adaptable truths. Facts are honest, truths are adaptable. True? Cool. I'm glad we agree. One of the biggest issues I had with these German companies was that they had a very, very deeply rooted belief that developers were slow, extremely slow. And that was a problem for me. So it became my next goal. I wanted to solve why are the developers so slow? Because whenever I talk to them, they actually seem to be really good developers. Like they seem to know their stuff. And actually, because they were, not doing all the other stuff, they actually seem to churn out features really, really quickly. But without facts, there is only speculations. All these companies I've been to where they have these kind of speculations that sounds wrong, my boss won't let me, my developers is slow, the coffee tastes like shit. We don't have metrics. Nobody actually went in and calculated this and looked at it. There's a book I'd like to recommend. If you don't have any metrics today about how good you're doing as a software developer organization, go and buy this book, steal it somewhere, and read it. It's written by Dr. Nicole Forsgren, Jeff Humble, and Gene Kim, and it defines, among other really, really interesting things about how to do things as a sort of engineering activity, it defines 4 metrics, which is lead time for changes, deployment frequency, mean time to restore, and change failure rate. Sorry. These are great. We all understand what this means, right? Your boss doesn't. It's a bit of an issue. So these are a little bit academic for most organizations. So I like to track this, but I prefer to rewrite them. My current rewrite in my current company looks like this. So instead of calling lead time for changes, how fast we make changes. Deployment frequency, how often we give you updates. Mean time to restore, how quickly we fix issues. Change failure rate, how smooth our updates are. We can call them different things to our organizations and to their organization because we're trying to sort of convey one truth using sort of adaptable truths using the same facts, right? But this is also the important thing here. Listen to the language we're using here. This is quite important because it will help us. How fast we make changes. Us together, right? Not the developers and the business people and everybody, how fast we make changes. How often we give you updates. You're getting something from us. So very positive language sort of helps us get through this. Sort of builds in it. So anyway, I got this data. If you're wondering how, please read the book. It's going to do a hell of a lot better example now what I'm doing to explain it. But I got this data and I figured out, no, actually, we're doing the changes really, really, really quickly, and then we suck at deploying because we deploy every 3 months. So even though you're getting 60 changes every 3 months, it feels like you're getting really, really, really slow because you asked for this over 3 months ago, and now you're getting it. So say what you like about Agile and all these sort of workforces, but incremental deployments really work because it's going to give you the feeling of speed. In this case, this wasn't possible to do. We couldn't deploy more frequently for a bunch of different reasons. But you can do this with other strategies as well. One of the strategies we implemented was simply, when you're done with a feature and it's been approved and tested, send an email. Hi, thank you for submitting this. I'm done. It will be deployed on this date. So suddenly we moved the discussion from, oh, the developers are slow. No. The developers are quite quick. It just takes time to get this out to all our environments. Which could be explained. I can't really go into what the German company did because you're Polish and you'll figure out what company it was and I'm not really allowed to tell you. Okay, cool. The second thing we can do to combat this political thing is branding. We noticed we had one of the senior executives who really, really didn't want us to modify the XDT tool. Like whenever we suggested something that we would change the XDT tool for something else, was rubbish, by the way. Anyone collect technical debt? So I used to go, whenever I went to someone, I found something particularly bad, I would collect it. Some of my favorites are, I found a company that used character values as foreign keys in a SQL database. This company, this XDT tool, they had a file, and I mean one file, one class, which had twice the number of lines of the book War and Peace. If I removed all the white space and line breaks, it still had 1/6 of the text content of War and Peace. It was a helper class. Anyway, this tool needed to be changed, like it needed help. And then this German, very burly German man, like who were dead set against this, changing this XDT tool. It's like, okay, why? So we went back and realized that he's been in this company for 30 years. He'd had this tool his entire career. Everything he'd done in his line of business, he'd used this tool. He'd known this tool his entire career. Actually, he was part of the initial team that, designed that we were going to have this tool. So there's a bit of, personal stake to it. So instead of, removing it, we said, all right, you know what? We're gonna add the XDT tool service. So we just kept the name, rewrote a bunch of code, and whenever he got to talk about it, he said, "Yeah, the XDT tools get a bit of a lift, a bit of a fix. They're making a little bit some small improvements, fixing some things." But to be honest, we're just doing a greenfield project and just called it the same thing. But we got away he couldn't argue about it, right? All right. So the third thing we'd like to talk about when it comes to convincing people in a political organization is telling the actual truth. You just need to be really smart about when you're supposed to do it. So they had this bad experience with the consultants, right? That they didn't trust the new code and they didn't want to rewrite code and they felt a lot of fear from rewriting new code, correct? So how do we get around that? And we were, sort of going this over through our heads and like, okay, how are we going to solve this? And one of the project managers, Therese, she said, why don't we just tell them the truth? So we all went, what? But, then she explained what she was thinking. No. But what if we just say, you know what? We realized that a low-code solution for this was probably the wrong idea, and that using that database solution that didn't work was probably a good idea. And we'll show them all the things we've learned that was a bad idea. And I mean, for me, it was like Jesus walked through the room. Like, wow. We went in. We prepared our presentations of what we have learned from the previous project. And it was a completely different discussion. Because suddenly, even if we didn't do it, we the developers or we the group, but we can still learn from it and we can take responsibility for what actually had happened here. It completely changed how we sort of had this discussion. It's a brilliant kind of thing. So it's an excellent tool for convincing people. There are two more things I'd like to say about the politics before we go into what we can talk about, how to actually fix things and things like that. How many of you use Jira? Like 50%. Anyone else use another ticket system? Azure DevOps, GitHub? Most of us like, okay. How many people like Jira? 1, 2, 3. How many people like your current ticketing system? So what I've discovered, that was 5 in total, what I've actually discovered is that ticketing systems do help. Like it keeps our state. We need ticketing systems, right? But people tend to use the ticketing system for too much. We dump like all our investigations. If somebody says in a meeting, but what about this? Oh, I don't know, I better create a ticket. And then that ticket is forgotten. And then somebody takes notes, and then those notes are forever on their laptop, right? This started to become a huge problem in this project because we had like 60, 70 files of like ADRs and architectural documents and all these sort of things that we needed to collect and collaborate and look over and make sure that everybody had the right version, because otherwise we even noticed in some meetings that we were disagreeing because one was looking at an old version of something. This will never work. Well, that's because you're looking at a 2-year-old version of this architectural diagram. So we went into a rather different, and this might be a bit of a too extreme thing, but it works really well here. We had one single file for each legacy project that we wanted to get rid of. One thing that defined, what are we going to do? What is the issue? What can we do? Every single question, every single risk, every link to every single architectural document, every sort of had a headline. And every meeting we took the notes in this document, we refactored them to be actions and be the things we needed to know. And the project manager got to own this file and refactor it so it was easy to search and had a really good index. So whenever I needed to find something, I would know the latest meeting for this project will have a link to this file. I will be able to go there, I will be able to click, and it will take me to the relevant thing that I need to edit so that I can pull it into this document. Because it's fine if you're a developer in one single project to keep track of what you're doing. But especially when you're working with somebody who is a manager, who maybe have 30 minutes to give you. If they need to find something, if they are actually taking time out of their day to do pre-reading, which to be honest is not that common, but if they actually do it, then you better make sure they find the correct stuff really quickly and really efficiently. All right. So, what is your responsibility as a subject matter expert? It's to be the expert. So I learned this the hard way during this project. I had 2 people that were doing extremely differently in what they were doing the same job, but they have very, very different progress. One of the people got like 3 or 4 or 5 approvals a day. One took 3 weeks per approval. One of the people was saying, no, I never get anything done. Like, it takes forever to get management to get back to me, and they never give me anything concrete. And it's absolutely horrible. And the other person was like, no, and they were talking to the same guy, by the way, in management. No, Michael is wonderful. I'm always getting replies from him. It's like, he's super quick, takes 20 minutes, and I'll prove it. What the? I was so confused. What's going on here? So again, let's go and actually look at the metrics. Let's go in the data. I find that the person who was having great success did one thing very differently from the other one. The person who was not having great success wrote the emails like this. Hi, we have this problem and we need to solve it. How do you think we should proceed? The second person wrote, hi, we have this problem. We could either solve it by doing Y or we can do it by doing Z. Because Z is more expensive, I recommend Y. Now, what this person had to do was then click reply, type OK, and hit Control Enter and send the reply. That's why he was getting so much more done. And this is something we can use. If we can get a management's email reply to be less than 4 characters, we increase the response rate with several 100%. If you can literally respond more or less without activating your brain, that's how we get decisions made. All right. So let's say we have all the stars align. Everybody wants to work with us. The manager says, yes, let's get rid of this legacy product. Does that just happen? No, of course not. We still need to plan some stuff, right? We actually need to get the developers to do the work. We need to sort of have some strategies to do this within these options. So there's a couple of things that I've used and that I've had various success with. I'd like to talk about 4 of them. So there's black sprints, depth prioritization, task simplification, and refactoring policies. So black sprints. Anybody run a black sprint? All right, so Black Sprint is basically one iteration of whatever agile project management run you're using, where you get to just fix problems. Like re-architecture code, remove things, write tests. There's not a single feature to be implemented. They're very, very common, and they're very, very easy to get wrong. So this German company had run this a couple of times. And every time they would write detailed technical tasks, they would estimate them, they would run the sprint demos. And I just noticed, well, to be honest, this is a black sprint. You just need to fix things. It can be chaotic. Very, very seldomly are we benefited by the things that we have created to be able to give information to our stakeholders in doing this. So something that I started doing lately is renaming this. So now I like to call them Tech Depth Week. We don't do a sprint for 1 week, and we just have Tech Depth Week, where we simply fix tech depth. That's a lot more effective, at least in our organizations that I've been in, than trying to sort of plan the work, because fixing technical depth, re-architecturing things doesn't really work like normal work that we get out of there. So I quite like that. Embrace the chaos. Go for a technical depth week. Or call it a bug bash if you like, and just kill bugs for a week. But that tends to them you have to define it in a QA, and I like the technical depth week. It helps. Now the problem is, how do we prioritize this? Because usually we have a lot to choose from. If I say you get to fix one technical debt issue in your product, do you know exactly which one will give you the most business value? No, right? Me neither. So we were sitting here discussing how are we going to be able to sort of prioritize this. And one of the business guys were luckily sitting in the same office as us, and he went, you just do a prioritization matrix, idiots. It's like, what? We're developers. We know everything, right? Here's this business guy sitting here talking about, what's he talking about? I never even heard of this. So went over to the whiteboard, and he drew this. And I'm going to use, in honor of him, I'm going to use the same example that he did. So he said, yes, who are your favorite Star Wars characters? And he wrote in a bunch of Star Wars characters. So let's use this to figure out who's the worst Star Wars character. And the simple way you do this is you go line by line. First you take, let's see if I can draw a little bit on this, can I? Yay, Microsoft. Who is worse, of Jar Jar Binks or Luke Skywalker? Shout out, shout. What? We're going to discuss this afterwards. But okay, let's say we do Luke. So we put a B. And then we go down and we say, okay, who's worst of Jar Jar Binks and Darth Vader? Exactly, Jar Jar Binks. I'm not going to take any risks this time. And then we continue like this. But you see the benefit of this one. You only have to compare two things. You don't have to consider the entire matrix. You only have to think about two things. Which one is worse? Is it this or that? And then you automatically create a prioritized list. And the further down the list you go, the less you have to think about. When you're down to 3 CPU, you don't have to, 3 CPO. Then you don't have to compare him to all the other previous ones. You just have to compare him to Princess Leia, Han Solo, Admiral Piet, and R2-D2. Then we're done. So the further down we go, the less we have to compare. So it's perfectly doable, a pen and paper on a whiteboard in an office. It takes 20 minutes, and then you'll have this organized list. So let's say we fill it in like this. Also summarizing it, we only have to look at two things. We have to look at each column and each row for that one, because you can only add people there. So it's super interesting to see here. Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi is D. There's 2 Ds. So he got 2 points. Jar Jar Binks got 8 points, and don't you even try to introduce Luke into this. All right. So it's a very, very simple way of generating an ordered list when we have so much context and information that we can't really think about it. So that's the decision matrix. pit solution against each other, makes it really easy to have a prioritized list even when we don't have any metrics. So the last thing then is task simplification. When we are creating legacy software for our software developers, who's the best software developer in the room? You are? Okay, great. How many juniors do you have in your company? 100. Okay, how long time would it take to train them to be as good as you? I'm sorry? It's not an option, right? Okay. So let's say infinite time. So it would take infinite time. So we can't do that, right? How long time would it take you to write a NuGet library that they could use? Yeah, exactly, because you're the best developer in the company. So if we take the best developer in the company and let them build an SDK instead of telling them how to write the code, not only do we get to abstract away the code, where this is possible, we also make all the juniors use really good code. So what we can do is to make the hard changes easy to do, even when doing that is hard. Which means that we write down what the hell are we fixing and how are we fixing it in detail, right? If we can make SDKs, if we can write code examples, we do that. And we provide that at those websites we mentioned earlier where you can go and see the life cycle, what's going away. So we make it easy. We take the best developer, we make them do it once, and then they can share with everybody else how to do it. Make sense? The last thing is that we do a migration checklist. This is really important, specifically if you're in an unstructured, unorganized German organization. So what you have to do in this case is you create a checklist like, where do I get access rights for the database? What type of connections do I need? What's the new endpoint? What's the rate limit? You just do like this checklist that you can go through. Who do you need to contact? What Jira tickets do you need to create? All these sort of things that would be hard to know. So you can just follow that checklist. Once you've done the code change, it's easy to follow the checklist and have all the information there. And just because most, of the best developers can be a little bit arrogant, they can also write that when they're doing the other thing, because they're also going to have to get the request or the things to do it. So, everybody lies. And I'm not giving you this talk to, make you distrust people. I'm just trying to show you that when we are working with an architecture organization, we're going to talk to a lot of people and everybody have their version of the truth. And we can affect that version of the truth by simply sort of acknowledging that everything that we're told is going to come with a bit of a simplification. And we are also going to need to simplify things. But we should keep in our head that if we simplify too much, then people will interpret that too much. They will make it too easy, too simple. And then we're going to have all these problems with slow developers that aren't really slow. I used to do this example, by the way. How many here has a mother? It's about 50%. Are Polish people made in factories? So everybody interprets, right? So we need to make sure we give them the correct facts. Thanks for listening. I have been Karl Henrik Nilsson. You can call me KH. If you want to discuss technical depth, please come find me. If you want to come work in Dubai, we have a lot of open jobs right now for software developers at GAC, where I work. When you can get to kill legacy software, you can work on new and exciting stuff. And if you want to chat with me, you can email me at kh@mean.se or, reach out on LinkedIn.